Riches don't belong to the hardest workers. If that were true, teachers and laborers would be billionaires. But they're not. Wealth follows power, the ones who control, who bend the rules, who dare first. Machiavelli exposed this centuries ago. Fortune rewards the bold, not the obedient. Most people stay poor because they're stuck in the wrong game. The question is, are you ready to stop serving and start ruling? Part 1. The illusion of hard work. If hard work made people rich, slaves would have been kings. Most people believe the oldest lie in the world. If I just work harder, one day I'll be rich. They think wealth is a reward for sweat, long hours, and sacrifice. But open your eyes, look around. The hardest workers in society are often the poorest. Construction workers break their backs, nurses work overnight shifts, teachers pour their hearts into students, yet they struggle to pay rent. If hard work was the key, they'd all be billionaires. Clearly, the system doesn't reward effort, it rewards power. Machiavelli understood this hundreds of years ago. He said, "The man who works for another is always a servant, but the man who makes others work for him is always the master." Think about that. The poor trade time for money, but the rich trade leverage for money. That's why a CEO can earn in a day what an employee earns in a year. Not because the CEO works harder, but because the CEO controls the system. This is the illusion of hard work. It's a trap designed to keep people obedient. Society tells you, get a degree, get a job, put in 40 years, save what you can. But this path is not wealth, it's survival. You give the best years of your life building someone else's empire, and in the end, you retire with just enough to survive. That's not freedom. That's a cage, and here's the psychology behind it. Humans are wired to follow leaders, not equals. The reason rich people rise so fast is because they step into positions of command. They project certainty, make bold moves, and others rally around them. People give their time, money, and trust to leaders who look powerful. Once that flow starts, wealth multiplies. Meanwhile, the hard worker stays invisible. He clocks in, clocks out, hustles, sweats, but no one follows him. No one invests in him. No one. He stays stuck in a loop, thinking more hours will bring more money. But time is limited, and effort alone will never break him free. This is why most people stay broke. They are trapped in the mindset of labor. They believe that grinding harder will one day pay off. But the truth is, hard work without power only feeds the rich. Every hour worked builds the master's castle, not the servant's. So the first principle you must burn into your mind is this: hard work does not equal wealth. Control. If your decisions don't move money, you're still just a pawn. And pawns are sacrificed in every game. Look carefully at the rich. Do they work harder than the poor? No, they work differently. They focus on ownership, not labor. They focus on leverage, not sweat. And because of that, their rise is 10 times faster. The lesson here is brutal but clear. Stop worshipping hard work as the road to riches. It's not. Hard work can keep you alive, but only power can make you rich. Part 2. Power creates wealth. People think money rules the world. But look closer. Money itself obeys a master. And that master is power. Wherever power goes, money follows like a shadow. That's why the rich don't chase money. They chase control. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't talking about dollars or coins. He was talking about power. And centuries later, his insight still cuts deeper than any motivational quote you'll see online. Because here's the truth. The fastest way to wealth is not to stack paychecks. It's to build leverage. Think about it. The worker trades his sweat for a wage. The master trades his decisions for empires. The worker spends his life clocking in. The master spends his life pulling strings. Who do you think ends up? Here's the first mistake people make. They confuse effort with control. They say, if I just work harder, I'll get ahead. But you can double your hours, triple your hustle, and still be broke if you don't have leverage. Why? Because your labor is still chained to someone else's system. That's why the construction worker builds skyscrapers, but can't afford to live in them. That's why the nurse keeps hospitals running, but barely pays her bills. They work harder than billionaires, yet wealth flows past them. Machiavelli would laugh at the idea of hard work equals riches. He'd say, the man who works for another is always a servant. The man who makes others work for him is always a master. That's the brutal distinction. So what's the principle here? Simple. Control creates wealth. Let me show you how it works in real life. Imagine two men start a restaurant. One becomes the chef, cooking from dawn till midnight. The other handles the systems, hires the staff, controls the brand. At first, the chef looks like the hardest worker. But years later, who's richer? The one who built the system. Why? Because power multiplies, labor does not. This is why the rich don't just work. They position themselves. They buy influence. They control resources. They stand at the top of pyramids where hundreds or thousands of people move in response to their decisions. Now let's break it down with psychology. Humans are wired to follow leaders, not equals. When someone shows certainty and authority, others line up behind them. They give loyalty, money, energy, even their time. And here's the twist. Once you control that flow, wealth doesn't just trickle in, it floods. But let's look at the consequence of getting it wrong. If you choose the safe path, if you play the game of work hard, save more, wait 40 years, you'll end up with nothing but exhaustion. That's not wealth. That's slavery dressed in comfort. You've traded your best years to build someone else's empire. You've handed them your time, and in return, they've given you just enough to survive. That's why so many people retire broke. They spent their life in survival mode, never realizing survival was the trap. They thought they were winning, but in reality, they were just playing the wrong game. Machiavelli's wisdom flips the table. He tells us, don't ask, how do I make money? Ask, how do I gain power? Because once you have power, money follows automatically. Let's get practical. How do you build this kind of power? Own, don't rent. Stop thinking like a worker, start thinking like an owner. Own a business, own assets, own attention. Ownership is the first step toward control. Influence perception. Machiavelli knew appearances often matter more than truth. If people believe you're powerful, they'll treat you as powerful. That treatment itself attracts wealth. Reputation can make you rich faster than years of grinding. Cut the dead weight. If you're in a cage, get out. Don't waste decades proving yourself in an environment that will never reward you. Go where power is up for grabs. New industries, growing markets, untapped spaces. Move boldly. Power doesn't come from waiting. It comes from striking first, acting decisively, and refusing to hesitate when opportunity knocks. When you start applying these, you'll notice something strange. The world begins to bend around you. Suddenly, you're not chasing money anymore. Money chases you. Investors approach. Partners seek you out. Opportunities appear where there were none before. But here's the warning. The rise is not smooth. When you start gaining power, resistance follows. Envy, sabotage, betrayal, it all comes with the territory. Machiavelli would say that this resistance is not a problem, but proof. Proof that you've stepped into real power. Proof that you've stopped being invisible, and that's the point most people miss. They want wealth without power, comfort without risk. You can't separate the two. Fast wealth requires power, and power requires boldness. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, if I just work harder, I'll get ahead. Stop. That's the mindset of a servant. Instead, ask, how do I build control? How do I make my decisions move money, not my muscles? That's the mindset of a master, because in the end, it's not the smartest man or the hardest worker who gets rich the fastest. It's the one who understands this law. Control creates wealth. Part 3, fortune favors the bold. Most people wait. They wait for more money, more time, the perfect chance. But while they wait, the bold strike. And fortune, like Machiavelli warned us, doesn't reward the cautious. It belongs to the daring. Here's a bitter truth. Hesitation kills wealth. People think playing it safe will one day make them secure. But in reality, safety is just another word for slow death. Look at history. Empires, businesses, dynasties. None of them were built by cautious men. They were built by those who dared when others froze. Machiavelli compared fortune to a woman. He said, she rewards the bold, the aggressive, the ones who act. What does that mean for you? It means wealth isn't polite. It doesn't wait at your door. You have to storm out and claim it before someone else does. Let's talk psychology. Why does boldness create riches? Because money follows certain. When you act with conviction, even without all the answers, people assume you know what you're doing. They trust you, they follow you, they invest in you. Certainty is magnetic. Doubt repels. Now let's break down the common trap. People say, I'll start when I have more savings. I'll start when the economy is stable. I'll start when the timing is right. You've heard it. Maybe you've said it. But that waiting, that's the enemy. Opportunities don't wait for your comfort. By the time you're ready, the door is already closed. Think about any fortune made quickly. It wasn't luck, it was speed. Tech founders who launched before the wave hit. Investors who bought when others were scared. Leaders who seized moments that looked uncertain to everyone else. They didn't wait, they moved. Here's the consequence of waiting: invisibility. If you hesitate, you blend into the crowd. You become another face, another follower, another servant. No one invests in the cautious. No one bets on the timid. And when you finally act, it's too late. Someone bolder already claimed the prize. So what's the alternative? Build a bias for action. Create a habit of moving while others think. If an idea excites you, test it within 24 hours. Don't let hesitation smother your momentum. Second, learn to use fear as a signal. When you feel fear, it's not always a warning, it's often proof that you're close to power. Bold players don't retreat when they feel fear. They act because of it. Third, position yourself in fast-moving arenas. Wealth doesn't grow in stagnant ponds. It explodes in fields like technology, finance, media, or industries undergoing massive change. The faster the field, the faster the fortune. And finally, strike before certainty. Most people wait until they're 100% sure. Bold people move when they're 60% sure because they know by the time they're ready, the window will be gone. Let me paint a picture. Imagine two men at the edge of a gold rush. One says, let's wait and study the land. Let's plan for the perfect spot. The other says, grab a shovel and start digging. Who ends up rich? The one who moved first. Even if he wasn't perfect, his speed beat the thinker's hesitation. Now let's go deeper. Why is boldness so rare? Because humans fear loss more than they crave gain. Psychologists call it loss aversion. The average man would rather avoid losing $100 than risk gaining $1,000, and that mindset is why most stay average. The rich flip it. They say, if I risk nothing, I gain nothing. If I lose, I'll recover. But if I win, I rise fast. That's why Machiavelli said fortune is like a woman. She despises the timid. She chooses the man who shows force, who moves decisively, who doesn't ask permission. Let's get practical. How do you apply this? Act under pressure. Train yourself to move when the stakes feel high. That pressure sharpens decisions. Take asymmetrical risks. Not all risks are equal. Find moves where your downside is small, but your upside is massive. That's how boldness becomes smart. Claim opportunities early. Whether it's an investment, a new skill, or a trend, move before the crowd. The first movers always win bigger. Detach from approval. Bold action will bring criticism. People will call you reckless? That's a sign you're moving fast enough to be noticed. If no one doubts you, you're invisible. When you practice this, something shifts. You start noticing how slow everyone else really is. You'll see them stuck in endless loops of hesitation while you're already on your second or third move. And once momentum builds, people can't catch up. But let's not sugarcoat it. Being bold is costly. You'll make mistakes. You'll lose sometimes. You'll face envy and attacks. But remember Machiavelli's warning, resistance is proof of your power. If no one tries to stop you, you haven't risen far enough. At the advanced level, boldness isn't just about your own moves. It's about controlling the moves of others. Leaders don't just act boldly themselves, they inspire armies to move with them. They multiply their boldness through followers, teams, networks. That's how empires rise in record time. So here's the takeaway. Wealth loves speed, fortune favors the bold. And every moment you hesitate, someone else is taking what could have been yours. The bold may stumble, but the cautious never rise. Part 4. Leverage, the secret weapon of the rich. Most people push with their bare hands and wonder why nothing moves. The rich, they find a lever. With one push, they move mountains. That lever is called leverage, and it's the hidden engine of fast wealth. Here's a question. Why does one man struggle for decades while another man seems to rise in a year? The answer is leverage. Leverage is how you make one move and get 10 results. It's the art of multiplying effort, money, and influence. Without it, you crawl. With it, you fly. Machiavelli understood this. He knew rulers never fought battles alone. They used alliances, armies, fear, and reputation as levers to extend their power. And the same principle applies to wealth today. Let's break it down. There are 4 main kinds of leverage: money, people, knowledge, and attention. First, money leverage. The poor say, "I can't start until I save enough." The rich say, "Whose money can I use?" They use loans, investors, and partnerships as fuel. They understand that money is a soldier. It moves when commanded. If you fear it, it serves someone else. If you command it, it builds your empire. Second, people leverage. Alone you move like a snail. With others, you move like a storm. Look at kings, CEOs, influencers. They didn't rise by themselves. They inspired armies, teams, and followers to act in ways that multiplied their vision. If you can recruit, persuade, and direct others, you've tapped into the fastest form of growth. Third, knowledge leverage. It's not just what you know, it's what you know before others. Think of investors who spotted tech before it exploded, or rulers who struck alliances before enemies noticed. Knowledge used early is a weapon. It gives you an edge while everyone else is still blind. Fourth, attention leverage. This is the new king of wealth. Attention is money. Control how people see you, and you control their choices, their trust, their wallets. That's why influencers, brands, and leaders rise so fast. Attention converts into partnerships, sales, and opportunities. Now here's the common mistake. The average man tries to do everything alone. He says, "I'll work harder, save more, learn everything myself." But Machiavelli would call this weakness. The man who insists on moving alone moves like a farmer dragging a plow. The man who uses leverage moves like a general commanding an army. Let's use psychology. Humans are drawn to strength. When they see someone moving with vision, they want to join. That's why leverage grows on itself. Once people believe you're rising, they push you even higher. That momentum is impossible to create alone. But what happens if you ignore leverage? You burn out. You spend years grinding while someone younger, less skilled, and bolder passes you in months. You watch them rise and think they're lucky, but they're not. They're leveraged. So what's the alternative? Shift your mindset from "how do I do this?" to "who or what can help me do this faster?" That single change takes you from worker to commander. Here are some practical tactics. Use other people's money. Don't fear debt or investment. If the move is calculated, capital can make you rich faster than saving ever will. Build alliances. Sometimes teaming up beats going solo. Share power now, expand later. Invest in the right knowledge. Don't just consume random content. Learn what gives you an unfair edge. Capture attention. Speak, post, network, brand yourself. No one knows your name, no one pays you. When you apply these, you'll notice something strange. Suddenly your moves create bigger ripples. People start calling you instead of you chasing them. Investors, clients, partners, they see your momentum and want in. But here's the Machiavellian twist. The higher you climb with leverage, the faster enemies appear. Rivals will resent your speed. Old friends may envy your ride. Competitors will try to sabotage you. That's the price of fast growth. Machiavelli warned, power attracts resistance. If no one is trying to stop you, you're not moving fast enough. At the advanced level, leverage isn't just about tools, it's about perception. Machiavelli said appearances often matter more than truth. If you appear powerful, people treat you as powerful. That treatment itself becomes leverage. This is why reputation is worth more than raw effort. A strong brand can move mountains that raw skill never could. So here's the end game. Imagine you control money through investors, people through teams, knowledge through insight, and attention through influence. What happens? You don't just rise, you become untouchable. You've built a fortress. Others rely on you. Others need you. And when they need you more than you need them, you've already won. That's the Machiavellian path. Not slow, cautious wealth, but fast, leveraged power. And once you step onto it, you'll realize why the rich never play the workers' game. They never pushed with their bare hands. They always used the lever. So remember this. The difference between moving like a snail and moving like a storm comes down to one thing: leverage. Find your lever, and the world will move for you. Part 5. Legacy, the final game of power and wealth. Getting rich is easy. Staying rich and being remembered long after you're gone, that's the real game. Wealth fades, but legacy. Legacy is the ultimate currency. Every empire, every fortune, every dynasty faces the same question. Will it survive the man who built it? Most people don't think beyond getting rich, but history shows us getting rich is only half the battle. The true masters, the Machiavellian minds, don't just chase wealth, they build legacy. Machiavelli knew this well. He observed rulers who rose quickly but vanished just as fast. Why? Because they built their power on weak foundations, on luck, on temporary fortune, or on personal charisma that died with them. The ones who endured were different. They created systems, symbols, and stories that outlived their own bodies. Think about the dynasties that lasted centuries. Think about billionaires whose names turn into brands, not just bank accounts. That's not wealth anymore, that's legacy. And legacy is what makes your power immortal. Let's break this into layers. First, legacy of systems. If your empire depends only on you, it collapses when you fall. But if you build systems, business structures, loyal networks, institutions, those systems keep producing long after you're gone. The king dies, but the throne continues. The CEO resigns, but the company still grows. That's the foundation of lasting wealth. Second, legacy of knowledge. Rulers write laws. Leaders write books. Entrepreneurs create blueprints. Knowledge passed down is a weapon sharpened for the next generation. When you control not just the present, but the minds of the future, your power multiplies across time. Third, legacy of image. Machiavelli emphasized the power of perception. He knew that how people remember you matters more than who you really were. Reputation outlives reality. Think about it. We still talk about Caesar, Alexander, Rockefeller, Jobs, not just for their money, but for the images they carved into history. Fourth, legacy of influence. True wealth isn't about how much you own. It's about how many lives are shaped by your existence. That could be through businesses that employ millions, ideas that reshape culture, or movements that outlive your name. Influence is wealth, converted into eternity. Now here's the trap. The small-minded chase quick cash. They blow it on luxuries, trying to look rich instead of building something lasting. The bold build empires, but the wise build empires that survive them. Psychologically, humans crave immortality. But bodies die, fortunes decay, palaces crumble. Legacy is the closest thing to eternity. That's why rulers carve statues, brands name skyscrapers, and men fight wars for names to be remembered. But here's the Machiavellian truth. Legacy isn't about morality. Some rulers are remembered as heroes, some as tyrants. Both are remembered because they were powerful enough to leave a mark. History doesn't ask if you were nice. It asks if you mattered. So how do you build legacy in your own life? Stop thinking small. If your only goal is to pay bills, you'll never rise above survival. Think in decades, not days. Build systems, businesses, investments, teams, structures that live without you. Protect your name. Your reputation is leverage that lasts longer than money. Guard it, shape it, use it. Pass knowledge. Teach, write, record, build blueprints others can use. That's how your ideas live on. Multiply influence. Connect your wealth to something bigger than yourself. Movements, culture, industries. At the highest level, legacy is not about being remembered fondly. It's about being remembered powerfully. Machiavelli himself was feared, criticized, even hated in his time. But centuries later, his name still shapes the way rulers and strategists think. That's legacy. Here's the paradox. You die twice. Once when your body is buried, and again when your name is spoken for the last time. The rich die once. The powerful die twice, but slowly. And those who built legacy, they never really die. So the final lesson is this. Don't just chase fast wealth. Don't just build an empire. Build something that bends time itself. Build systems, knowledge, image, and influence that echo beyond your years. That is the Machiavellian way, because in the end, the poor leave behind memories. The rich leave behind money. But the powerful, they leave behind history. Closing, you've just walked through the real laws of power and fast wealth, laws most people never dare to face. Remember, fortune doesn't wait, power doesn't apologize, and legacy doesn't forgive the timid. The choice is yours. Stay safe and invisible. or step into the game where history remembers your name. If this opened your eyes, then get ready, because in the next chapter, we go even deeper into the shadows of human desire and power